What if I told you that the only thing standing between you and unlimited wealth is a corpse you refuse to bury? Right now, as you're watching this, there's a version of yourself that's keeping you trapped in financial mediocrity. It's not your circumstances, it's not the economy, and it's certainly not because you lack the intelligence or drive to create wealth. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating, seeing who's joining us from around the world. The real culprit is far more insidious. It's the financial identity you've been carrying around like grave clothes, suffocating every opportunity for prosperity that tries to reach you. Has this ever happened to you? You set financial goals, you create budgets, you even start making more money, but somehow you always end up back where you started. Or worse, you might blame it on bad luck, poor timing, or external circumstances, but what you're about to discover might surprise you. The problem isn't what's happening around you, it's what's happening within you. You see, most people are trying to build wealth while still identifying as someone who struggles with money. They're attempting financial resurrection while clinging to the corpse of their poor identity. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has holes in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it all leaks out because the container itself is broken. Every time you say, "I'm not good with money," "I always struggle financially," or "rich people are just different from me," you're not describing your reality, you're creating it. These aren't harmless observations. They are spiritual contracts written in the invisible realm, binding agreements that keep you locked in cycles of financial limitation. You've been unknowingly speaking these poverty spells over your life, and the universe has been faithfully delivering exactly what you've been declaring. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share with you goes deeper than any financial strategy you've ever heard. This isn't about budgeting techniques or investment advice. This is about the fundamental law of financial resurrection that governs every dollar that flows into or out of your life. The breakthrough you've been searching for won't come from learning new money management skills or finding the perfect business opportunity. It will come from understanding that your current financial identity is a mask you've been wearing for so long that you've forgotten it's not your true face. Underneath that mask of scarcity thinking and financial fear lives your authentic, wealthy self, the version of you that was designed to prosper, created to multiply, and destined to live in abundance. But here's the part that most people miss. You cannot resurrect what you refuse to bury. Your wealthy self cannot emerge while your broke self is still occupying the throne of your consciousness. The old financial identity must die. Not gradually, not eventually, but deliberately and completely before the new one can be born. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to become wealthy. The question is whether you have what it takes to sacrifice who you've been financially to become who you're meant to be economically. And that transformation begins with understanding the first law of resurrection. The people who subscribe to this channel are the ones who are serious about completely transforming their relationship with money. If you're ready to go beyond surface-level financial advice and dive into the spiritual laws that govern abundance, subscribing means you'll be the first to know when I release the next life-changing content. The first law of resurrection reveals something most people never realize. Your financial breakthrough requires a funeral, not just a makeover. Think about it. When you try to change your money situation by simply adding new habits on top of old beliefs, you're essentially dressing a corpse in designer clothes. The transformation looks good on the surface, but underneath, the same dead financial identity is still running the show. This is why so many people experience what I call the rubber band effect with money. They make progress, sometimes significant progress, but then something invisible pulls them back to their original financial state. They blame external circumstances, bad timing, or even self-sabotage, but the real culprit is far more subtle. They never buried the old financial self that was comfortable with struggle, familiar with limitation, and secretly terrified of what true abundance might demand from them. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. Your current financial identity has been having a conversation with money that you're not even aware of. While your conscious mind is planning and goal setting, your subconscious identity is whispering a completely different story. It's saying things like, money is hard to come by, I don't deserve this level of wealth, or something bad always happens when things get too good. These whispers are so quiet, you barely notice them, yet they're powerful enough to sabotage every financial opportunity that comes your way. The journey to authentic wealth requires what I call the altar of financial transformation. This isn't a gentle process of gradual improvement. It's a complete surrender of the false financial identity that's been masquerading as the real you. Every excuse you've made about money, every story you've told yourself about why wealth isn't possible for you, every moment you've identified as someone who just isn't good with finances, all of it must be laid on this altar and burned away completely. But here's where most people get stuck. They want the benefits of financial resurrection without going through the death process. They want to keep their familiar relationship with scarcity while somehow expecting abundance to show up. It's like trying to plant a garden while refusing to remove the weeds. The new growth gets choked out before it ever has a chance to flourish. The most revealing moment in anyone's financial transformation happens when they realize they've been at war with the very thing they claim to want. You say you want more money, but listen to how you talk about wealthy people. You claim you desire financial freedom, but notice how you feel when opportunities require investment or risk. You declare you're ready for abundance, but observe how quickly you retreat into scarcity thinking when challenges arise. This internal conflict isn't a character flaw. It's simply the old financial identity fighting for its survival. But once you recognize this voice for what it really is, you can begin the most important conversation of your financial life. You can finally address the part of you that has been unconsciously choosing limitation over expansion, safety over growth, familiar struggle over unfamiliar success. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic and show you exactly how to identify which version of your financial self is currently in control of your money decisions. Because until you can distinguish between the voice of your scarcity identity and your true abundant nature, you'll keep sabotaging your own prosperity without even realizing it. Write in the comments, I'm ready for my financial funeral, if this resonates with what you've been experiencing in your own money journey. The revelation that changes everything is this: you're not dealing with a money problem, you're dealing with an identity crisis. Right now, inside your consciousness, there's a civil war happening between two completely different versions of yourself. One version speaks the language of limitation, sees obstacles in every opportunity, and feels safer staying small. The other version recognizes abundance as your natural birthright, sees possibilities where others see problems, and feels energized by growth and expansion. Here's what most financial advice completely misses. These two versions of yourself cannot coexist peacefully. They're not going to hold hands and work together toward your financial goals. One of them must be completely dethroned for the other to take its rightful place on the throne of your consciousness. This is the hidden battle happening behind the scenes of every financial decision you make, every opportunity you encounter, and every moment you interact with money. The broke version of yourself has been ruling your financial kingdom for so long that it's developed an entire infrastructure to maintain control. It has convinced you that struggle is noble, that wealthy people are somehow different from you, and that your current financial situation is just realistic. This version speaks with the authority of experience, reminding you of every financial mistake you've ever made, every time money slipped through your fingers, every moment you felt embarrassed about your bank balance. But here's the revelation that will shift your entire perspective: that struggling financial identity was never your true self. It was a costume you put on during challenging times, a survival mechanism that helped you cope with scarcity, but it was never meant to become your permanent identity. Underneath that mask of financial limitation lives your authentic, wealthy self, the version of you that was designed to prosper, created to multiply, and destined to live in abundance. This isn't about positive thinking or financial self-help techniques. This is economic soul surgery. Just like a surgeon must completely remove a tumor rather than trying to work around it, your scarcity identity must be completely extracted from your consciousness. You can't negotiate with it, compromise with it, or gradually phase it out. The transformation requires a decisive moment where you choose which version of yourself gets to live and which one dies. The wealthy version of yourself doesn't need to be developed or trained. It needs to be uncovered. It's already complete, already confident, already connected to infinite abundance. But as long as the broke version is still occupying space in your consciousness, speaking into your financial decisions and influencing your relationship with money, your true wealthy nature remains buried under layers of learned limitation. That like button isn't just about the algorithm. It's your way of saying yes to this transformation, of acknowledging that you're ready to claim your financial resurrection. If this content moved something in you, that simple click tells me you're part of the community that's serious about breaking free from financial limitation. This is why traditional financial education often fails to create lasting change. It tries to teach new strategies to the same old identity that created the financial problems in the first place. It's like trying to teach a prisoner how to be free while they're still wearing chains. The real work isn't learning new financial techniques. It's breaking the chains of scarcity consciousness that have been binding your abundant nature. The moment you truly understand that your financial struggle has been an identity issue rather than a knowledge issue, everything shifts. You stop looking for external solutions and start addressing the internal revolution that must happen for true wealth to emerge. Now, I want to reveal the specific mechanism that allows this transformation to happen, the ancient principle that governs how consciousness shapes reality, and how your words become the bridge between your current financial situation and your destined abundance. Write in the comments, 2 identities fighting. If you can feel this internal battle happening in your own financial life, the mechanism that governs this transformation is both ancient and revolutionary, the law of substitution. This isn't some mystical concept. It's the fundamental principle that determines which version of your financial self gets to rule your economic reality. Every single word you speak about money is either crowning scarcity as the king of your consciousness or installing abundance as the ruler of your financial kingdom. Think about the conversations you've had about money just this week. When someone asked how you're doing financially, what came out of your mouth? When you looked at your bank balance, what did you say to yourself? When an unexpected expense appeared, what was your immediate verbal response? These aren't casual comments. They're coronation ceremonies. You're literally choosing which financial identity gets to wear the crown in that moment. Here's the revelation that will change how you think about wealth forever. Your mouth is your money-making tool. Not your job, not your investments, not your business, your mouth. The words you speak about money are the raw materials from which your financial reality is constructed. Every declaration you make about your economic situation becomes a blueprint that the universe follows with mathematical precision. Most people have this completely backwards. They think their financial identity is determined by their bank balance, their job title, or their investment portfolio. But the truth is far more empowering. Your financial identity is sculpted by your speech about money and wealth. Your bank balance is simply reflecting back the financial identity you've been declaring with your words. This is why 2 people can have identical financial circumstances, but completely different economic futures. One person looks at their current situation and declares, "This is temporary. I'm in the process of building wealth." The other looks at the same situation and says, "I'm just not good with money. This is probably how it's always going to be." They're both dealing with the same external reality, but they're speaking 2 completely different futures into existence. The breakthrough happens when you realize that you don't have to fight your current financial circumstances. You simply have to stop giving them permission to define you. Every time you say, "I am poor," you're not describing your situation, you're prescribing your future. Every time you declare money is tight, you're not reporting facts, you're creating them. But here's where it gets really powerful. The moment you start saying, "I am abundance made manifest," you're not lying or pretending. You're activating your true financial nature. You're calling forth the wealthy identity that's been buried under years of scarcity declarations. You're giving your abundant self permission to emerge from the tomb of limitation and take its rightful place on the throne of your consciousness. This substitution happens instantly, not gradually, not over time, but in the very moment you choose different words. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with your declarations. It simply begins. reorganizing your reality to match whatever identity you're claiming with your speech. Now, I want to show you exactly how to weaponize this principle in your daily life, because once you understand the specific words that resurrect wealth consciousness and the precise phrases that bury scarcity thinking, you'll never again accidentally sabotage your financial future with unconscious declarations. Write in the comments, "My mouth creates my wealth," if you're ready to start using your words as your primary money-making tool. The most counterintuitive principle in wealth creation is this: those who are currently experiencing financial lack must speak the opposite of their appearance. This isn't about denial or pretending. It's about understanding a fundamental law that governs how reality transforms. When someone who's struggling financially declares, "I am wealthy," they're not lying to themselves. They're activating a dormant truth that's been buried under layers of circumstantial evidence. Here's the hidden mechanism behind this transformation. Your current financial situation is not your financial identity. It's simply the result of your past financial identity. Every dollar in your bank account, every bill on your desk, every financial stress you're experiencing right now is the manifestation of declarations you made months or even years ago. Your present circumstances are the echo of your former self's relationship with money. If this kind of deep financial transformation work speaks to your soul, you'll want to make sure you don't miss the next breakthrough. Hit that subscribe button because I'm constantly sharing the consciousness-shifting principles that actually create lasting wealth. This isn't your typical money channel. This is where real financial resurrection happens. But the moment you start speaking from your wealthy identity instead of your current situation, you begin creating a completely different financial future. You're not describing what is, you're declaring what must become. This is the secret that separates those who break free from financial limitation from those who remain trapped in cycles of scarcity. The challenge is that most people have unknowingly signed spiritual contracts with poverty consciousness. These aren't formal agreements. They're the repetitive stories you tell yourself about money that become binding commitments in the invisible realm. Every time you say, "I'm always broke," you're not just making an observation. You're renewing your lease in financial struggle. When you declare, "Money doesn't come easily to me," you're not stating a fact. You're creating a law that governs your financial experience. These contracts become so familiar that they feel like truth, but they're actually prisons built from words. The most dangerous part is that every repetition strengthens the contract. Each time you rehearse your financial limitations, you're adding another signature to an agreement that keeps you bound to economic mediocrity. Behind the scenes of your conscious awareness, these financial contracts are working 24 hours a day to ensure your reality matches your declarations. They filter opportunities through the lens of your proclaimed limitations, sabotage decisions that could lead to abundance, and create a magnetic field that attracts circumstances consistent with your stated financial identity. Breaking these contracts requires more than positive thinking. It requires a deliberate act of spiritual rebellion. You must look at your current financial situation and refuse to let it define your financial identity. You must examine every story you've been telling about money and consciously choose to break agreement with limitation. The journey of transformation begins when you realize that "I'm not the wealthy type" is not a personality trait. It's a contract you signed in a moment of discouragement. "Money always slips through my fingers" isn't a character flaw. It's a spiritual agreement you made with scarcity. These contracts can be canceled, but only through deliberate declarations that establish a new relationship with abundance. Now, I want to reveal the specific technique that allows you to identify which financial contracts are currently running your economic life and the exact words you need to speak to dissolve these agreements forever. Because once you break free from these invisible chains, your wealth consciousness will emerge with a power that will surprise even you. Write in the comments, "I cancel my poverty contracts," if you're ready to break these invisible agreements that have been limiting your financial potential. The technique that unlocks this transformation is deceptively simple, yet profoundly powerful. You must speak your wealth into existence before the world gives you permission to believe it. Your sentences become the scaffolding upon which your new financial reality is constructed. Every declaration you make about abundance is literally building the infrastructure that will support your future prosperity. Most people have this process completely backwards. They wait for their bank account to change before they're willing to speak differently about money. They want to see evidence of wealth before they'll claim their wealthy identity. But this approach keeps them trapped in an endless loop of limitation, because the external world is always reflecting your internal declarations, not the other way around. The breakthrough happens when you realize that your cells are listening to every word you speak about money. Your nervous system is responding to your financial declarations. Your subconscious mind is reorganizing itself around whatever economic identity you claim with your voice. When you consistently speak wealth, declaring abundance, even when your current circumstances suggest otherwise, something miraculous begins to happen behind the scenes of your awareness. Your cellular structure starts to vibrate at the frequency of prosperity. Your energy field begins to magnetize opportunities that match your declared identity. Your decision-making process shifts to align with wealth consciousness rather than scarcity thinking. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the natural result of consistently speaking from your authentic, abundant nature rather than your temporary financial circumstances. But here's where most people stumble. They try to negotiate with their limiting beliefs about money instead of crucifying them completely. They attempt to gradually phase out scarcity thinking while slowly introducing abundance consciousness. This approach fails because you cannot serve two masters. Your financial limitations aren't reasonable concerns that need to be managed. They're lies that need to be executed. The law of financial release demands complete surrender of everything that contradicts your wealthy nature. Every story about why money is hard to come by, every belief about why wealth isn't possible for someone like you, every excuse about why your financial situation is different from others who've succeeded, all of it must be laid on the altar of truth and burned away completely. This isn't about being unrealistic or ignoring practical concerns. It's about understanding that your financial limitations are not facts. They're agreements you made with fear during challenging moments. These agreements have been masquerading as wisdom, convincing you that accepting less is somehow noble or realistic, but they're actually chains disguised as common sense. The journey to authentic wealth requires you to become ruthless with anything that suggests you're meant to struggle financially. You must develop zero tolerance for thoughts, words, or beliefs that position scarcity as your natural state. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're not attacking yourself. You're liberating your true abundant nature from the prison of learned limitation. Now, I want to show you the most powerful daily practice that accelerates this financial resurrection. Because once you understand how to systematically replace scarcity declarations with abundance affirmations, you'll begin to witness changes in your financial reality that will seem almost magical in their speed and precision. Write in the comments, "I speak wealth into existence," if you're ready to let your voice become the primary tool for building your abundant future. The most liberating discovery in your financials journey is realizing that you have the power to reverse every negative declaration you've ever made about money. Every time you spoke limitation over your finances, every moment you agreed with scarcity, every declaration that positioned you as someone destined to struggle economically, all of it can be undone through the same mechanism that created it, your voice. This reversal isn't a gradual process of slow improvement. It's an immediate transformation that happens the moment you consciously break agreement with your broke identity and sign a new covenant with your wealthy nature. Think of it as a spiritual contract negotiation where you're firing your old financial advisor, the voice of scarcity, and hiring a new one, the voice of abundance. The practice that accelerates this transformation beyond anything else is what I call the morning financial resurrection. Every single day, as you wake up, there's a choice happening at the deepest level of your consciousness. You can either resurrect yesterday's financially struggling self or bury that identity completely and rise as your wealthy self. Most people unconsciously choose to resurrect their financial struggles each morning. They wake up and immediately begin rehearsing their money problems, reviewing their financial limitations, and mentally preparing for another day of economic challenge. Without realizing it, they're breathing life back into the very identity that created their financial problems in the first place. But when you understand this hidden mechanism, you can flip the script entirely. Instead of beginning each day by resurrecting your financial fears, you can start by conducting a funeral for the version of yourself that struggled with money yesterday. This isn't about denial or pretending your challenges don't exist. It's about refusing to let yesterday's financial identity dictate today's economic possibilities. The transformation happens when you wake up and consciously declare that the person who feared abundance, who flinched at investment opportunities, who felt uncomfortable around wealthy people, who believed money was scarce, that person died in their sleep. Today, you're rising as someone completely different, someone who expects abundance, who sees opportunities everywhere, who feels worthy of unlimited prosperity. This daily death and resurrection becomes the rhythm of your financial transformation. Each morning, you're literally choosing which version of yourself gets to make your money decisions for the next 24 hours. Will it be the version that's comfortable with limitation, or the version that operates from overflow? The power in this practice lies in its consistency. Your subconscious mind begins to understand that the old financial identity is no longer welcome in your conscious experience. Day by day, the voice of scarcity grows quieter, while the voice of abundance grows stronger. Your default financial thinking shifts from "I can't afford it" to "How can I create the resources for this?" Your automatic response to opportunity changes from fear to excitement. If something shifted for you during this journey, if you felt your wealthy consciousness stirring as we walked through this together, show me by hitting that like button. It lets me know this message reached exactly who it was meant to reach. Behind the scenes of this daily ritual, something profound is happening in your nervous system. You're literally rewiring your brain to perceive reality through the lens of abundance rather than scarcity. Your emotional responses to money situations begin to transform. Your decision-making process starts to align with wealth consciousness rather than survival thinking. Now, I want to reveal the specific words and phrases that will make this morning practice incredibly powerful, because there's a precise language that resurrects wealth consciousness and exact declarations that bury scarcity thinking forever. Write in the comments, daily, financial resurrection, if you're ready to start each morning by burying your broke identity and rising as your wealthy self. The specific language that transforms your financial reality operates on a principle most people never discover. You must speak your financial truth before the world gets a chance to speak its limitations over you. Every morning, there's a race happening between your voice and the voice of circumstance. Whichever one speaks first wins control of your financial consciousness for that day. Most people lose this race without even knowing they're competing. They wake up, check their bank balance, look at their bills, read the news about economic challenges, and allow these external voices to set the tone for their entire financial day. By the time they try to think positively about money, their consciousness has already been hijacked by scarcity programming. But when you understand this hidden mechanism, you can claim victory in this daily battle by speaking your wealth declarations before circumstances have a chance to whisper their limitations. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone, before you review your expenses, before you allow any external voice to comment on your financial situation, you must command your economic day with deliberate declarations of abundance. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about establishing which reality gets to be real in your experience. When you declare, "Money flows to me easily and abundantly," before you see any evidence of struggle, you're not denying challenge. You're refusing to let challenge define your financial identity. You're claiming the altar of wealth consciousness before fear gets a chance to set fire to your prosperity thinking. The transformation accelerates when you discover the power of rhythm in financial reprogramming. Your voice becomes a trumpet that brings down walls of financial limitation. But trumpets aren't effective when blown randomly. They require consistent, deliberate rhythm. What you repeat about money, you literally resurrect in your bank account. This isn't metaphor. It's the precise mechanism through which consciousness shapes financial reality. Behind the scenes of your awareness, repetition is reprogramming. Every time you audibly declare your wealth, you're overriding old scarcity programming with new abundance coding. Your nervous system begins to recognize these declarations as the new normal. Your subconscious mind starts to Reorganize your reality around these repeated truths rather than around your temporary circumstances. The journey becomes powerful when you realize that speaking wealth daily, faithfully, and audibly isn't about convincing yourself of something that isn't true. It's about remembering something that's always been true but got buried under layers of learned limitation. Your abundant nature doesn't need to be created. It needs to be uncovered through the consistent rhythm of wealth declarations. This is why sporadic positive thinking doesn't work, but daily financial declarations create miraculous results. Sporadic efforts try to override years of scarcity programming with occasional bursts of positivity. Daily declarations establish a new operating system for your financial consciousness through the power of consistent rhythm. Your voice becomes the dominant frequency in your financial experience. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you're creating them. Instead of responding to limitation, you're commanding abundance. The external world begins to rearrange itself around the identity you're claiming with your consistent declarations. Now, I want to show you the most profound aspect. Now, I want to reveal the most critical period in this transformation process. The moment when your new financial identity becomes unshakable and your wealthy consciousness reaches the point where it can never be overthrown by temporary circumstances. Write in the comments, "I hear my chains breaking," if you're experiencing this internal resistance as you begin to speak differently about money. The critical period in your financial transformation happens when you realize that your past doesn't have to be your prison, but only if you stop giving it life through your words. Right now, without even realizing it, you might be embalming your financial history with every story you tell about money. Every time you say, "I've never been good with money," you're not sharing a fact. You're nailing your current finances to a cross of limitation and ensuring that yesterday's struggles become tomorrow's reality. This is one of the most insidious ways people sabotage their wealth-building efforts. They work incredibly hard to change their financial circumstances while simultaneously preserving their financial limitations through storytelling. They'll invest in education, start businesses, create budgets, but then undo all that progress by repeatedly declaring their identity as someone who struggles with money. The hidden mechanism behind this self-sabotage is that your subconscious mind operates like a phonographic plate, recording every financial word you speak like a groove etched in wax. These grooves become the soundtrack of your economic experience, playing automatically in the background of every financial decision you make. If the dominant groove is, "I'm not good with money," then no matter how much knowledge you acquire or how many opportunities appear, your subconscious will find ways to prove that old recording correct. Breaking free from this pattern requires understanding that you're not just changing your financial habits, you're changing the entire record that's been playing in your subconscious. The transformation happens when you take up the hammer of new declarations and deliberately shatter the old poverty record that's been running your economic life. The journey of rewriting your financial history begins with recognizing which stories you've been unconsciously telling that keep you bound to past limitations. When you catch yourself rehearsing old financial failures, when you find yourself explaining why money has always been difficult for you, when you justify your current circumstances by referencing your financial past, these are the moments when you're strengthening the very grooves that keep you trapped. But the moment you begin speaking, "I am no longer the one who lacks, and I am no longer the one who fears money," you're not just making positive statements, you're literally rewiring the neural pathways that determine your financial reality. You're creating new grooves in your consciousness that align with abundance rather than scarcity. Behind the scenes of this transformation, your brain begins to notice different information in your environment. Instead of focusing on evidence of financial limitation, you start perceiving opportunities for wealth creation. Instead of feeling anxious around money conversations, you begin to feel excited about financial possibilities. Your entire nervous system recalibrates to match the new identity you're claiming with your words. The power of this process lies in its precision. You're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're excavating the truth about your abundant nature that got buried under years of limiting financial conditioning. Each new declaration removes another layer of false programming and reveals more. of your authentic wealthy consciousness. Now, I want to show you the most powerful technique for ensuring these new grooves become permanent and how to prevent your old financial programming from ever taking control of your economic decisions again. Write in the comments, "I'm rewriting my financial record," if you're ready to stop embalming your financial past and start speaking wealth into your present moment. The technique for making these new grooves permanent operates on a principle that will transform your entire relationship with money. You must set fire to poverty consciousness with the matchstick of wealthy words. This isn't a gentle process of gradual improvement. It's a deliberate burning away of every financial limitation that's been masquerading as reality in your life. Your mouth becomes the altar where this transformation takes place. Every financial phrase you speak is an offering, either an offering to scarcity that strengthens limitation, or an offering to abundance that feeds your wealthy consciousness. Your faith becomes the fire that determines which offering gets burned and which one gets empowered. When you speak wealthy words with unwavering conviction, you're literally setting fire to decades of poverty programming. The most profound revelation in this journey is understanding that financial law operates with mathematical precision. What you name financially, you become. This isn't metaphor or motivation. It's the exact mechanism through which consciousness creates economic reality. If you say, "I'm broke," you're not describing your current situation. You're issuing a command to the financial law that ensures continued poverty. Your words become financial blueprints that your subconscious mind follows with unwavering obedience. Behind the scenes of every financial decision you make, your subconscious is referring to these blueprints to determine what's possible for you economically. When your dominant financial self-description is limitation-based, your subconscious will sabotage opportunities that don't align with that identity. It will cause you to make decisions that prove your limiting declarations correct, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it's designed to manifest whatever identity you claim with your words. This is why people can learn identical financial strategies but get completely different results. The strategy isn't the determining factor. The financial identity claimed through speech is what governs outcomes. Two people can implement the same investment approach, but the one who consistently declares, "Money works for me," will experience completely different results than the one who says, "I never pick the right investments." The transformation accelerates when you realize that your financial self-descriptions aren't observations, they're orders. Every time you speak about money, you're giving instructions to the forces that govern your economic experience. When you say, "Money comes easily to me," you're not hoping for easier money. You're commanding it to appear. When you declare, "I'm a magnet for abundance," you're not wishing for magnetic qualities. You're activating them. The journey deepens as you begin to understand that wealthy people intuitively know this principle, even if they can't articulate it. They naturally speak about money from a position of authority rather than victimhood. They describe their financial future with certainty rather than hope. They claim their abundant identity with their words long before their circumstances confirm it. Your current financial situation is simply the physical manifestation of your past financial declarations. Every dollar in your account, every debt on your books, every financial stress you're experiencing right now is the result of words you spoke months or years ago when you didn't understand their creative power. Now, I want to reveal the most dangerous form of financial self-sabotage that even people who understand this principle fall into, and the specific protection that ensures your wealthy declarations never get contaminated by unconscious limitation language. Write in the comments, "My words are financial blueprints," if you're beginning to understand how your financial descriptions become your economic destiny. The most dangerous form of financial self-sabotage is so subtle that most people commit it multiple times a day without realizing they're destroying their economic future with every sentence. When you say, "I'm financially unlucky," you think you're simply describing your experience, but in reality, you're throwing down altars to economic error and worshiping at the shrine of limitation. You're not making an observation. You're making an offering to the forces that keep you trapped in financial struggle. This spiritual dimension of financial language is what separates those who break free from economic limitation from those who remain bound by it for their entire lives. Every phrase you attach to, "I am financially," becomes a sacred declaration that either glorifies abundance or magnifies limitation. There's no neutral financial speech. Every word is either building your wealth consciousness or tearing it down. The hidden truth that changes everything is understanding that these aren't just words floating in the air, they're spiritual agreements that activate forces in the invisible realm. When you consistently declare, "I'm not good with money," you're not just describing a skill deficiency. You're entering into covenant with incompetence. When you say, "Money always slips through my fingers," you're not reporting a pattern. You're commissioning more of the same experience. Behind the scenes of your conscious awareness, these declarations become the governing laws of your financial experience. They create an energetic signature that attracts circumstances, people, and situations that validate whatever identity you've claimed. The universe isn't punishing you, it's simply responding to the orders you're giving through your financial self-descriptions. The transformation that breaks this cycle requires you to recognize and destroy what I call the grasshopper mentality around money. This is the mindset that keeps you speaking about wealth as if it's reserved for other people, as if financial success is something that happens to others but not to you, as if your role is to admire prosperity from a distance rather than claim it as your birthright. You cannot inherit financial prosperity while calling yourself small financially. When you say, "People like me don't make that kind of money," you're not being realistic. You're being restrictive. You're building walls around your economic potential with words that seem humble but are actually forms of spiritual self-rejection. The journey of breaking free from grasshopper mentality requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your financial identity. Instead of waiting for evidence of wealth, before you'll speak wealthy, you must begin speaking wealthy to create the evidence. You are not waiting to become financially successful. You're naming what already exists in potential and calling it forth into manifestation. This shift requires courage because it means speaking about money from your destiny rather than your history. It means declaring your financial worthiness before the world confirms it. It means claiming your place among the prosperous while your bank account still reflects scarcity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic and reveal the most powerful protection against unconscious financial self-sabotage, the daily practice that ensures your wealthy declarations remain pure and uncontaminated by limitation thinking, even when challenges arise. Write in the comments, "I break my grasshopper mentality," if you're ready to stop calling yourself small financially and start claiming your rightful place among the prosperous. The daily practice that ensures your wealthy declarations remain uncontaminated is built on a profound understanding. Your financial blessing is actively searching for a wealthy name it can attach to, and that name must be renewed every single day. This isn't about repetition for the sake of habit. It's about understanding that abundance operates like a spiritual frequency that can only connect with an identity that matches its vibration. Think of your financial blessings as gifts that have already been wrapped and addressed to you, but they can only be delivered to the right identity. If your daily declarations keep claiming the name of struggle, lack, or financial unworthiness, your blessings will remain in spiritual transit, unable to find the wealthy identity they're meant to deliver to. You cannot pour new wine of abundance into old wineskins of poverty consciousness. The container must match the content. This daily renewal happens through what might seem like a simple practice, but is actually one of the most powerful tools for financial transformation. How you speak to yourself in the mirror. Most people completely underestimate the mirror's role in shaping their financial reality, but it's actually one of the most potent manifestation tools available to you. When you look in the mirror each morning, you're not just seeing your physical reflection, you're engaging with the person who makes all your financial decisions. This is the person who will either accept or reject opportunities today. This is the person who will either speak abundance or limitation in conversations about money. This is the person whose identity will determine what financial possibilities are available in the next 24 hours. The transformation happens when you stop using the mirror to rehearse financial defeats and start using it to command financial victory. Instead of looking at your reflection and thinking about money stress, bills, or economic challenges, you begin speaking directly to the wealthy identity that's waiting to emerge. You look into your own eyes and declare, "I see the wealthy one, the financially abundant heir." Behind the scenes of this practice, something profound is happening in your neurological programming. The mirror creates a feedback loop between your conscious declarations and your subconscious identity. When you speak to your reflection from wealth consciousness, you're literally rewiring your brain to recognize yourself as a prosperous person rather than someone who struggles. With money, this isn't about pretending or positive thinking. It's about calling forth the authentic wealthy self that exists beneath layers of learned financial limitation. Every morning, as you look in that mirror, you're choosing which version of yourself gets to live that day. Will it be the version that expects financial challenge or the version that anticipates abundant flow? The power multiplies when you realize that the person looking back at you in the mirror is the same person who will make every financial decision, have every money conversation, and create every economic opportunity for the next 24 hours. By speaking to that person from wealth consciousness, you're programming them to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. Now, I want to reveal the most critical timing for this mirror practice and the specific words that create the deepest transformation in your financial consciousness, because there's a window of opportunity each day when your subconscious mind is most receptive to these identity-shifting declarations. Write in the comments, "I speak to my wealthy self," if you're ready to use your mirror as a tool for financial transformation rather than a reminder of financial struggle. The window of opportunity I mentioned operates within a deeper spiritual framework that most people never discover. Every negative financial declaration you've ever made created what can only be described as spiritual contracts. These aren't metaphorical agreements. They're actual energetic commitments that bind you to specific economic experiences. Every time you spoke financial lack, complained about money, or declared your unworthiness of wealth, you were unknowingly signing poverty contracts that remain active until you deliberately cancel them. The liberation begins when you understand that these contracts can be ripped apart with the same force that created them, your word. The transformation requires you to stand before that mirror and declare with absolute authority, "I rip every false financial agreement with lack, delay, and economic defeat with my wealthy word." This isn't symbolic language. You're literally canceling spiritual agreements that have been governing your financial experience. But canceling old contracts isn't enough. You must also establish new ones. This is where the most powerful 7-day financial resurrection process becomes essential. This isn't a gradual improvement program. It's a complete identity transformation that happens through systematic daily declarations that build upon each other with increasing intensity. The first day requires you to revoke every financial vow that kept you poor, speaking directly to the spiritual realm and announcing that all previous agreements with limitation are null and void. The second day deepens this process as you declare that you no longer serve financial struggle, that you're divorcing yourself from the identity of someone who must work hard for little return. By the third day, you're announcing to the universe that you're completely unavailable to be financially broke, that poverty consciousness can no longer find an address in your awareness. The transformation accelerates on the fourth day when you declare that the old financial self has passed away, not improved, not healed, but actually deceased. The fifth day marks your emergence as you begin to walk as financially risen, moving through the world with the energy of someone who operates from abundance rather than scarcity. The sixth day brings the profound realization that you're not trying to change financially because you're already wealthy in consciousness, just allowing that wealth to manifest in form. The seventh day culminates in you becoming living proof of financial resurrection, embodying the complete transformation from poverty consciousness to wealth identity. Each day builds upon the previous one, creating a momentum that becomes unstoppable by the end of the week. Behind the scenes of this 7-day process, your entire financial energy field is being reconstructed. Your nervous system is learning to recognize abundance as normal rather than struggle. Your decision-making patterns are shifting to align with prosperity thinking rather than survival mentality. Now, I want to reveal the most profound aspect of this transformation, how this 7-day process doesn't just change your financial situation, but actually alters your spiritual DNA, creating a permanent shift that makes it impossible for you to ever return to poverty consciousness. Write in the comments, "I'm ripping my poverty contracts," if you're ready to cancel every spiritual agreement that has been keeping you bound to financial limitation. The profound aspect of this transformation that alters your spiritual DNA involves understanding that true financial freedom requires you to carry a cross before you can wear a crown. This isn't about suffering, it's about sacrifice. The cross you must bear is the death of financial pride, the complete elimination of poverty identification, and the yielding of every scarcity idol you've been secretly worshiping. Most people want the crown of wealth consciousness without being willing to carry the cross of identity death. They want to add abundance to their existing financial personality rather than allowing their scarcity identity to be completely crucified. But the spiritual law governing financial transformation is absolute. The false financial self must die before the true wealthy self can be crowned. This cross-carrying process involves burning away every attachment to struggle that's been masquerading as virtue in your life. It means releasing the hidden pride you've taken in your ability to survive difficult financial circumstances. It requires yielding the familiar comfort of being able to blame external forces for your economic situation. These attachments feel like part of your character, but they're actually chains disguised as identity. The crucifixion of your scarcity consciousness happens through the power of your declarations. Every wealth statement you make is literally wielding a shovel full of power, throwing dirt onto the grave of financial limitation. When you speak prosperity truths, you're not just making positive statements. You're wrapping burial cloths around economic deception, ensuring that poverty consciousness cannot resurrect itself in your experience. Behind the scenes of this process, something miraculous is happening in the invisible realm. Each declaration becomes a spiritual weapon that systematically dismantles the infrastructure of lack in your consciousness. Your words are not just describing a desired reality, they're actively burying the false reality that's been imprisoning your abundant nature. The journey intensifies when you realize that your mouth has become both a graveyard and a birthplace. It's the cemetery where financial bondage goes to die and the delivery room where wealth consciousness is born. Every time you speak abundance, you're simultaneously conducting a funeral for limitation and a birth announcement for prosperity. This dual function of your declarations creates a momentum that becomes unstoppable. As you consistently bury financial bondage with your words, the soil of your consciousness becomes increasingly fertile for wealth to grow. The old roots of scarcity thinking decompose and become nutrients for the new tree of abundance that's taking root in your awareness. The transformation reaches its crescendo when you understand that you're not just changing your financial situation, you're participating in a spiritual resurrection that touches every dimension of your existence. Your relationship with opportunity shifts, your energy around money transforms, your decision-making process aligns with prosperity thinking. Now, I want to reveal the final mystery of this process, how your transformed financial consciousness becomes a magnet that draws wealth to you effortlessly, and why this magnetic quality cannot be faked, but emerges naturally once your old financial identity has been completely buried. Write in the comments, "I bury financial bondage with my words," if you understand that your declarations are literally digging the grave for your poverty consciousness. The final mystery that creates this magnetic quality in your financial consciousness involves a profound ceremony that most people are too afraid to perform: speaking the funeral of financial failure. This isn't about dwelling on past disappointments. It's about refusing to honor what was never meant to exist in your life in the first place. The liberation comes when you understand that you've been gathering flowers for financial failures that God never planted in the garden of your destiny. Every time you rehearse a business collapse, every moment you memorialize a financial betrayal, every instance you hold a memorial service for an economic disappointment, you're giving life to experiences that were only meant to pass through your consciousness, not take up permanent residence. The transformation requires you to speak ashes over every financial setback, declaring with authority that these experiences have no power to define your economic future. You're not ignoring the lessons they taught. You're refusing to let them become monuments that overshadow your financial destiny. The financial tomb is sealed. Failure is declared dead, and you're walking away from the cemetery of past disappointments. But the most powerful shift happens when you realize that old financial names can no longer reach you. The version of yourself that used to answer to broke, financially struggling, or money problems has moved to a new address in consciousness. Those names are being called out in the old neighborhood of scarcity thinking, but you're no longer living there. Behind the scenes of this relocation, something profound is happening in your energy field. The vibration of limitation can no longer locate you because you've changed your spiritual address. When people try to engage you in conversations about financial struggle, when circumstances attempt to remind you of past money problems, when your old identity gets summoned by familiar triggers, there's no one home to answer. This isn't about denial or pretending challenges don't exist. It's about understanding that your new financial identity operates from a completely different frequency than your old one. You've essentially changed your phone number in the spiritual realm, and poverty consciousness doesn't have your new contact information. The journey reaches its apex when you begin to answer only to wealth, abundance, and financial freedom. These aren't titles you're trying to earn. They're names you're finally willing to claim. When opportunity calls, you respond immediately because that's your real name. When abundance shows up at your door, you open it without hesitation because you recognize the visitor. Your transformed financial consciousness becomes magnetic because it's no longer divided between two identities. There's no internal conflict between the part of you that wants wealth and the part that fears it. You've chosen which voice gets to live and which one dies, and that decision creates a unified energy field that naturally attracts what matches its vibration. Now, I want to reveal the most extraordinary outcome of this entire transformation process. How your new financial identity begins to create wealth in ways that seem almost miraculous, and why this effortless manifestation is actually the natural result of consciousness alignment rather than supernatural intervention. Write in the comments, "Old names can't reach me," if you're ready to stop answering to broke, struggling, or financially limited and start responding only to your wealthy identity. The extraordinary outcome of this transformation reveals itself through a phenomenon that appears miraculous but is actually the natural result of complete consciousness alignment. The moment your new financial identity becomes unshakable, you begin to walk through the world wearing completely different garments than before. The grave clothes of poverty that you wore for so long, the linen of financial limitation, the bandages of borrowed money beliefs, simply fall away without effort. This isn't a gradual process of improvement. It's an instantaneous transformation where you suddenly realize you no longer smell of the economic tomb, the scent of struggle that used to follow you into every financial conversation, the aroma of limitation that people could sense when you walked into rooms, the fragrance of fear that accompanied every money decision. All of it vanishes in a moment of recognition. Behind the scenes of this shift, your entire energetic presence changes. You begin walking fresh, financially whole, clothed in prosperity power that others can feel even when you haven't said a word about money. Your posture changes. Your voice carries different authority. Your decisions flow from abundance rather than scarcity. This isn't something you have to work to maintain. It becomes your natural state. The most profound discovery in this journey is understanding that wealth creation through transformed consciousness operates on an entirely different mechanism than wealth creation through effort. When you finally learn to speak from your financial throne rather than from your financial wounds, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need to strive, force, or beg for abundance. The breakthrough moment arrives when you simply open your mouth in wealth, truth, and watch your abundance rise naturally. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. It's about speaking from the place of consciousness where you recognize yourself as the rightful heir to unlimited prosperity. When you speak from this financial throne, all of heaven rushes to manifest your declarations. This effortless manifestation happens because you've finally aligned your voice with your authentic nature. The universe isn't granting you something foreign. It's simply responding to someone who's finally speaking their true language. Your words carry the authority of someone who knows their divine inheritance rather than someone who's hoping to deserve it. The transformation becomes permanent when you realize that this isn't a technique you apply. It's an identity you embody. You're not trying to manifest wealth. You're simply allowing your wealthy consciousness to express itself through your circumstances. The striving stops because you've remembered who you really are beneath all the learned limitation. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic and reveal the most important distinction that determines whether this transformation becomes a temporary experience or a permanent shift. The difference between speaking wealth from desperation versus speaking wealth from divine authority. Write in the comments, "I walk clothed in prosperity power," if you can feel yourself shedding the grave clothes of financial limitation and stepping into your natural, abundant state. The distinction that determines whether this transformation becomes permanent or temporary lies in understanding the profound difference between speaking wealth from desperation versus speaking wealth from divine authority. Most people, even when they discover the power of financial declarations, still speak from the energy of need rather than the energy of knowing. When you speak wealth from desperation, your words carry the vibration of someone who's trying to convince the universe of something they're not sure about. There's a pleading quality, an underlying fear that maybe it won't work, a subtle energy of hoping rather than commanding. This desperation-based speaking creates temporary results at best because it's still rooted in the consciousness of lack. But when you speak wealth from divine authority, your words carry the unmistakable vibration of someone who knows their true identity. There's no negotiation, no pleading, no hoping, just the calm certainty of someone claiming what already belongs to them. This is the voice that creates permanent transformation because it's speaking from the consciousness of wholeness rather than the consciousness of need. The journey reaches its pinnacle when you recognize that this moment, right now, is your hour of financial resurrection. Not tomorrow when you have more money, not next month when your situation improves, not next year when you've learned more strategies. This is the moment when you release the financially fearful self that's been running your economic life and rise in the financially knowing self that's been waiting in the wings. This is the hour when you release the financially delaying self, the one that says, "Someday, when I'm ready, after I figure it out," and rise in the financially declaring self that speaks wealth into existence right now. The transformation doesn't happen gradually over time. It happens in moments of decisive declaration, when you choose which identity gets to govern your financial experience. Behind the scenes of this resurrection hour, the most profound shift is taking place in your relationship with divine timing. You're finally understanding that abundance consciousness operates only in the present moment. The wealthy "I am" never functions in the future tense. It's always now, always immediate, always available. The culmination of everything we've explored comes down to one ultimate declaration that changes everything. I am now who God says I am financially. Not who your financial history says you are, not who your bills say you are, not who your bank balance says you are, but who the divine blueprint of your life declares you to be economically. This isn't about religious language. It's about recognizing that there's a financial identity that was designed for you before you were born, before you learned to fear money, before you accepted limitation as normal. This identity doesn't need to be developed or earned. It needs to be claimed and embodied. Now, I want to bring this entire journey full circle and show you how to seal this transformation permanently, ensuring that your old financial identity can never reclaim the throne of your consciousness. Write in the comments, "This is my resurrection hour," if you're ready to release every version of your financial self that operates from fear and step fully into the one that operates from divine knowing. The sealing of this transformation happens through a simple but profound recognition. You've just participated in something far more powerful than watching a video. You've witnessed the death of one financial identity and the birth of another. You've been present for your own economic resurrection. If you made it this far, it's because something inside you recognized the truth in these words. Your wealthy consciousness has been stirring, awakening, preparing to take its rightful place in your life. The fact that you stayed with me through this entire journey tells me you're not just looking for quick financial tips, you're ready for complete financial transformation. This is exactly the kind of deep, consciousness-shifting content I bring to this channel. Not surface-level advice that sounds good, but changes nothing, but the profound spiritual principles that actually govern how wealth flows into your life. If this resonated with your soul, if you felt something shifting inside you as we walked through this together, then you'll want to subscribe, because every video I create is designed to take you deeper into your authentic, abundant nature. The people who find their way to this content aren't here by accident. There's something in you that's been calling for this level of truth about money, wealth, and identity. You've been ready for someone to speak to the part of you that knows you're meant for so much more than financial struggle. If this message reached the place in you it was meant to reach, leave a comment that simply says, "This message was meant for me." I want to see who was truly present for their own financial resurrection today. And if you felt that connection, that spark of recognition as we moved through this transformation together, let me know by hitting the like button. It tells me you're ready for more of this level of consciousness work around wealth. There's a video right here that takes this even deeper, showing you exactly how to maintain this new financial identity when challenges arise. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation is just beginning, and I want to walk with you every step of the way into the abundant life that's been waiting for you.